get cash, cause your body can't afford it. Don't you know who I am? You better give a damn. I'm with the band, man. Bask in my glory and tell me a story of how great you think I am.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan,
And I'm Eric,
and we're
and
with
we're
the
with the
band,
band, man.
man.
So this is, I know we joked around about it during the interview, but this is what me of almost 30 years ago. Like this was my dream episode, right? Like
Mhm.
Rennie from Starkweather, they were that very first band in the scene that I got into, and like I got all the way into Starkweather.
Yeah,
And it's funny looking back. Obviously, you enjoyed Starkweather, still do enjoy Starkweather as well, but
yeah.
like I think they were more of a gateway for you getting into metal music.
Hmm.
And for me, I kind of always stayed, I don't want to draw a stupid line in the sand and this genre and that genre, but I always kind of tended to stay more on this side of the fence of hardcore.
Hmm.
And I know
Hmm.
you jumped that fence and went like headfirst into metal. And
Yep.
it's funny because Starkweather, they walk that line, but they were never really a metal gateway band for me, and they were for
Hmm.
you. So, but the chance to talk to Rennie, for somebody who had written him handwritten letters and was pen pals with him for 5+ years, and all my formative years as a youth, it was amazing. And obviously he was a great guy, super cool.
Yep.
um Very, very, very Philadelphia man. Like,
Yeah.
I know we
Great.
were joking around that before, but I mean, like, I don't think I've ever met anybody. I've worked with a few guys who are from Long Island, and they kind of have that accent, but
Hmm.
not to that level that Rainey
Yeah.
had. Like, it was incredible.
Yeah. The ultimate East Coaster in a completely complimentary way, of
Oh
course. But
yeah,
yeah,
like
right.
definitely. That's, although I do think we
Can't
we never
mistake him from being from Philadelphia, that's for sure. So
we never ran some Chicago guys, man, so they can
yeah,
throw out that Chicago accent for
the
us.
Chicago accent. Yeah.
Oh man, they could just be like eating like an Italian beef for the entire interview or
Mike
something.
Mike Ditka. Yeah, the whole live up to the stereotype of
Oh
that.
man, I love
So
it.
yeah.
They can like assault us for putting ketchup on a hot
take
dog.
take a union break. Yeah. Uh,
Oh man. So before we jump into the talking any more about the interview, what's new? What's going on in your world?
on my I love we talk a lot, our kids, we bring up our kids and um yeah, my almost 4-year old. I just love how like it's like clay to be molded. She's just such an impressionable, they're look, obviously little sponges, but um yeah, just I'll be singing lyric. I like to. I'm like I'll be singing lyrics all day because my wife doesn't even know any of the songs I'm singing, but um, both my kids love the Three Little Pigs story, so I always go to Green Jelly with that, and I just now at this point I've sang it so many times. My daughter knows the lyrics to almost all the song, but I got to the point where I could play it in the car, and she actually likes Green Jelly, Three Little Pigs, so which I feel is and I always cut it off before it gets to the naughty word, to the bad word part. But and we took our band name from 30 Foot Fall. We both love that band dearly, and they have a song called Bad Hair Day Punks, which great track. And I always have to at night I have to do her. Sometimes I have to help and do her tangles. So I always sing that song every night. About her hair being in a tangle because that's one of the lyrics of the song. And at this point now, she said she's a bad hair day punk. Has no idea what it means. Just likes to. And my wife's just like, "What the hell is wrong with you? And what are you doing to my kid?" And yeah. But now I've got her in, the Ninja Turtles, 30 Foot Fall. Yeah. So she's getting some influences from me. I'm gonna try to put my weirdness on her and see what sticks. So,
I
but
mean,
what's new in the world of Eric?
it it sounds like objectively you are parenting right. So I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think
absolutely.
you can debate that. The only thing I will say, since my daughter's a few years older than Annika, is when Sophie was 4, we also went through a green jello phase, and we enjoyed their music, we enjoyed their lyrics. And then one day she just up and told me, Daddy, I don't like rock music anymore. I don't like pop music. So like,
Oh,
it's
heel turn.
I was working on it really hard, and now
Yeah,
it's
that's good
now
to know. I have a feeling that day's coming, but that's good to
now
know.
it's Taylor Swift 24/7 in this household. And
Oh
it's
man, you
yeah,
tried though. You fought the good battle for a while. So
I'm hoping that she's going to come back at some point. Like I don't think it's forever, but I guess we'll find
hmm
out.
yeah.
So what is new and exciting with me? Last time around, Chuck being such a sweet guy, such a nice guy, it was hard for me to have any of my old man Eric gripes,
Yeah.
but I'm bringing it back.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so since it's still, I know we've had some summer like weather, even though it's at the tail end of winter. Um, for the most part, it's been kind of cold, and
hmm
I don't like to leave my house when it's below 60 degrees if I can avoid it.
hmm
That's my cutoff is 60. So like trying to stay in shape and exercise or whatever, I go to this gym, and we have this elevated track for jogging, right? It's 3 lanes. The signs all say if you're walking, go in the first two, or go in the first lane. If you're jogging, go in lanes 2 or 3 or whatever. Like I don't care. A lot of times there's old people, they walk in lanes 1 and 2. Like that's fine, whatever. I can jog by the third one.
hmm
The thing that upsets me and I don't understand is like you'll get these people and they'll like zigzag in it, like they'll be walking and like I'll be jogging up behind them and they'll be walking like so slow and they'll like just like edge into my path. I'm like, I have to like spin, and I'm like, dude, like I should have to do this. And then the other thing I don't understand, right? Like if you're running a marathon and you're running 15 miles or whatever, and you want to cut the corners because you're going to shave a half a mile off your total running, like power be, man. Like
hmm
do that. That's amazing. But if you're jogging laps, like I sometimes I'm running and somebody will cut the corner in front of me. I'm like why? Like you're running for either 3 miles or you're running for 30 minutes or like whatever that workout regimen is. Why do you have to cut
hmm
the corners for an indoor track? It doesn't make
Yeah, that
sense.
seems
And they
yeah,
don't look
that
over their shoulder. And dude,
wow, it's pretty cutthroat.
it's weird.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
weird.
that-
It's
Well,
it's
yeah.
funny though because like I said, you're on the elevated track, so like 3 days a week, there's like the senior citizen, like the low impact cardio, which is
Mm,
which is interesting to watch. But then 2 days a week they have like pickleball tournaments, and like there's definitely people who play it for fun, and then you can definitely see the people that are way too into it. It's like, come on,
yeah,
dude,
way
like it's
competitive.
it's yeah,
hmm
it's like this
Yeah, that's
community thing, man.
hilarious.
We don't care. Um, so yeah, other than that, not too much going on in my world. Not too recently, but recently enough, they did that like end game DLC for God of War Ragnarok. And
hmm
so I decided, you know what, I want to play through that one, but in order to get there, I wanted to play back through the series in timeline chronological order. So in my spare time, I've been playing through all the original God of Wars. So there were like 6 mainline ones, I guess, in the original series, and then there's the 2 in the reboot series. So I'm finally on the 2018 God of War, the PS4 version where he's in Norway or Sweden or wherever, whatever Scandinavian land he ends up in, and it's fun. I forgot how good that
All
series
those,
is.
yeah, how they held up pretty well then.
They do. It's interesting because obviously when they came out, I was playing them as they were coming out, so there were big gaps. But when you play them all together, like it's weird that they would have had 6 games with Kratos as the protagonist because
hmm
he's not a likable guy. Like
Yeah,
there's no redemption for him.
he
Like
was bad the whole time. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, like it's weird that you have to play as him, and like
yeah.
you just let people fall to their death when you could have just as easily prevented it. But you're like, like it's not really for me. It's like I remember, obviously 7 and 8, like no big spoilers for anybody who hasn't played it, but like you have a kid and like you're trying to be a decent father, a good father, a better father, I don't know, whatever his
hmm
thing is. And I remember there being like a redemption arc. But now that I'm still kind of in the beginning of 7th, like he's such a dick. Like
Yeah.
again, right? Like we talk about our kids all the time. I would never be a father like that. Like he's
Yeah,
always like, boy, like he doesn't even call his son by his name. Like, boy, go do this. Like, I don't know.
yeah, he's
It's yeah, it took him a very long time to find his footing in fatherhood and be a decent person. So
which
that's that's kind of what I'm doing with my time when I'm, not listening to music and not working. So and doing,
yeah,
family stuff, all that stuff. So
yep, all the usual good stuff. Yeah, it's yeah, I got this the Switch is about what I'm able to turn. It seems like that's what I play now. We're playing through Super Mario Wonder, and but my daughter, if my daughter's, yeah, showcase, I'll play a couple rounds of Mario Kart with her, and she just kind of holds the controller and presses the button. Doesn't really do, but it's fun. It's cool to. I'm appreciating Nintendo more now that I have young kids. I was always, me. I was more of a Sega and an Xbox and more of a hardcore gamer kind of guy, and not the family kind of classic games that they produce. I love Nintendo Super Nintendo, but I'm I'm seeing it has a nice place in my house, and I it's cool to have a system that I could play. Yeah, that just has family friendly games, which I never used to care about, and now I do. So, but I long for the days. I saw the new trailer for GTA, and I've always been a sucker for that series. And there's going to be some games that are going to make me have to upgrade my system, and that probably will be one of them. So, and GTA and Resident Evil, those will probably be the series that will keep me gaming, I think. So,
excellent. So yeah, jumping into our conversation with Rennie, like I said, I mean, it was definitely a dream come true. He was a great guy, a class act. What stuck out for you? What anything that surprised you? Anything that really drew your attention?
I think, I mean, I think he's such a brutally honest kind of guy in such a good way, but um, yeah, I think that the long gaps between albums and not touring as much, prevented them from probably from becoming a lot more not say mainstream, but they have a very dedicated following, and anybody who listens to them loves them and knows how great Starkweather is. But they could have become a bigger band than what they did because they were carving out the singing screaming thing, you know. Uh, yeah, way before a lot of bands were doing it, as far as but yeah, I loved his I thought it was interesting that he basically wrote lyrics like kind of on the fly, in the studio. I mean his you said he writes such great lyrics, but he really just kind of came up with those. I thought, it's like he seemed like he came up with those pretty quick, which I thought I was impressed with. And yeah, he's very well versed literary. Not the Lovecraft, of course, but seems like he has some very cool influences for his lyric writing. Um, and yeah, they kind of another band. They've played with like a lot of different kind of bands, and we talked about Season of Risk, and we as far as them doing the EP, but playing with Morbid Angel, I like that conversation where he talked about how they played with Morbid Angel, and they were a band that fit in with hardcore, with punk, with metal. They could play on kind of a lot of different bills and fit right in there. But yeah, I just thought he was just really just candid and honest, and I really enjoyed our conversation with him. Yeah,
That's
what about yeah? What did you take away from the first part of the interview?
the the part that you mentioned, that they were doing singing screaming 30 years ago is really cool. And the other thing that I think about is right, even in the mid to like late 90s when God, I hate that word screamo like became a
Yeah.
thing or whatever.
Hmm.
Um God, I hate that word so much.
Yeah, it's awful.
Man, I would rather anyway, like when the bands, a lot of the other bands, I'm not going to name any names. I don't want to hurt anybody's sensitive feelings. But
Yeah.
when a lot of those other bands were dabbling in it, it seemed like you would either have one guy who could whatever scream all right, and then I guess passively sing, or sing decently, and then I guess throughout the occasional bark or whatever. Or you'd have some bands where you'd have one guy who was the dedicated screamer, and then like either the guitarist or whoever would be like the singer. But Rennie was able to do both of them, and both of them were amazing. I
Yep.
remember like way back in the day, um, reading a album review. I don't remember if it was Crossbear, Into the Wire, or whatever, but they compared his singing voice to Sinead O'Connor, which
Yeah.
I, I guess. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
sound like it at all to me, but I mean, like his singing voice was so unique, but it was
Hmm.
like a developed actual singing voice, right? It
Yep.
wasn't like the nasally pop punk, like I guess we can sing because we inhale through our nose kind of thing that a lot of the bands experimented with back in the day. Like it was a legitimate good singing voice.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that shocked me is his screaming voice has gotten better, his singing voice has gotten better throughout all the years for Starkweather. And when we asked him about it, it was just they're trying to keep up with the musical evolution of everybody else in the band, right? So it just pushed him to
Yeah.
be better, and it's incredible. Like it's outstanding. And
Yep.
the thing that shocked me was that's the only band he's ever been in. Like he never even
Yeah.
dabbled in any other band. It's weird to think that Starkweather has been his full-time, part-time gig for
Hmm.
30 years. Like it's crazy.
Which is cool. And it's basically been the same band. I know he mentioned the guitars that came in around Croatoan, but yeah, it's basically been like the same band, really. And I think he's cool. He's like, even he said like, hey, uh, we could put out more music if we had a different drummer, but he's like, we love, we love our band, and it seems like he's really loyal and he really likes. Yeah, he has a comfort level with his band. I think that's really cool for him to stay loyal to his bandmates instead of just, I mean, using a session musician or something to put out more music. So yeah, he seems like just a stand-up guy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's I you could probably make that argument that they could do more output, but then on the other hand, everything they've done is so
Yeah,
amazing. Like, I
it's
mean,
quality.
of
Yep.
course, I want to hear more of it because I want to be selfish, but
Hmm.
it's not like they rushed out or did shoddy or substandard work with it. Like everything is great. I mean, and I mean, once a band releases 35-minute long song, like what what do you
Yeah,
want
what
from
else?
them? I mean,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they give
it's
it their all. When they release music, it's you could tell like they've poured themselves into every release they've ever done. So
yeah, I mean, everything, all the instruments are polished, the vocals are polished. I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about that a little bit in the second part, that
yep.
maybe the artwork and the layout
Yeah.
and everything for Into the Wire wasn't as polished, but I mean, the album itself was amazing. All of their stuff is
Mhm.
amazing. And yeah, I mean, like you said, they're kind of a jack of all trades because they can walk that line. And it would be weird because I don't like on paper who really matches with Starkweather, right? They're
Yeah.
unique. Nobody
Mhm.
really sounds like them. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's the joys of it, right?
Yeah, he has his screaming vocals. I've never heard anything like he has a most very unique screaming voice. And I always loved the dynamic between the Sinead O'Connor. I when he mentioned like Jeff Tate from Queensryche, which I'm not even the biggest Queensryche. I'm not even call myself a fan, but vocally, I will. Jeff Tate's a great vocalist. He's a great voice, and I could see like when I listen to Starkweather now, I'm like I could definitely see the influence of Jeff Tate. Um, yeah, that kind of operatic singing almost. But his screaming voice is just monstrous. I mean, there's nothing quite like his screaming. Which uh always drew me to Starkweather.
I think,
Being the metalhead that I am.
yeah, I think like the very first Starkweather song I had heard was like, I think it was like Shards or something. Again, way back in the day, like,
Hmm.
but it was, it's the song starts off and it's kind of melodic and it's atmospheric and it starts to get a little heavier and he starts off with the singing and then like boom, that screaming comes in. It's like, whoa, like I don't think my 15-year-old mind was prepared for that. Man. It obviously it changed the trajectory of everything, but it was like you said, it's top notch. His singing is amazing, screaming is amazing. He's a one man show.
Yep.
I mean, again, you listen to their music, like you can hear the evolution of everything, right? I mean, like
Sure.
again, he talked about
They
the new
progressed.
guitarist and Croatoan. So, at that
Yep.
point now you have like these wicked, like thrashy guitar solos and like
Hmm.
crazy instrumentation. Like it's amazing as
Yeah.
they went throughout a band. And yeah, I mean, like you said, it's unfortunate that they real life seems like it came first for them all the time, and nobody's
Hmm.
ever willing to just drop everything and go on a tour because, like you said, everybody who knows Starkweather that I've ever met loves them,
Yeah.
but they're like the best kept secret of music because
Absolutely.
they never broke into the larger consciousness of the scene, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That like the Dillinger world, like someone like that, like they could, yeah, yeah, a band they could have been the band like a Dillinger Escape Plan, like that kind of level, I think. So
And again, right, they shared a basis with Dillinger, like, but
yeah, actually, yeah,
it's
absolutely,
it's it's weird.
yeah.
It's weird to think about. And also,
Yep.
it's still on my bucket list. I know we talked about that in the thing, but like of most of the bands, most of the people that I plan on bringing on here, like, right, obviously we talked about the wish list or whatever. Most of
Hmm.
them I've seen live. I've never seen Starkweather live, and that's
Yeah.
like, I feel dirty about that. I really do.
Well, they've never, we know growing up, we knew that they never played Chicago. They never played anywhere around us. It was always Philly. So yeah, Philly or New York, as you talked about. Those were like his spots. So
I know, but I feel like 18-year-old us like should have just been like,
yeah,
yeah,
you
dude,
should
like
have.
screw it. Let's do a road trip to Philly. Like,
I know if only my little brother would have, we could have some Terminator action where he would have, I don't know. Yeah. But now he lives there now. If we could have went back into, yeah. But yeah, yeah, no, yeah, it's one of those things we always talked about doing, going to Philly and seeing him. But yeah, uh, that's hopefully one day we both get to see Starkweather.
I mean, if and when they play, I am definitely going to make it work. So
Yeah,
if I have to bring the family and put them up in a hotel and here's shopping money, you guys have fun while I go see Rennie and Starkweather.
yeah,
Like,
there you go. Absolutely.
by all means.
But it's cool that I know. I mean, ever since I known you, I know you and him communicated through letters, which is really cool, and a lost art, I think, in a lot of ways. That some, but for him to write back, and that's just what, yeah, I don't know, that's awesome. I just think that, yeah, I think it's cool he came full circle from writing letters to him, followed them from their early inception to now do an interview with them. I think that's that to me that's really cool. So
And in the mid 90s, don't know if I should mention this or not, but I did run a GeoCities fan site for Starkweather. So I
GeoCities,
I
nice,
uh,
right then.
I cut my teeth doing web design, trying to learn how to
Oh
do
man, all
Starkweather
the
stuff.
anybody that grew up at our age range, that will hit hard for them, I think, the
Uh,
GeoCities.
yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
I don't throw this word around very often, but Rennie's handwriting is beautiful. Like
Hmm.
it's like a work of art. It's 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 incredible.
That's a
But
rare
yeah, you're right. Like
that's a rare thing.
the fact that, like you said, like the fact that he wrote back. And the other thing that really strikes me as interesting about Rennie, um, obviously he mentioned that he went to college and now he works construction
At
or
Temple.
whatever, but
Hmm.
he's like a blue collar scholar. Like, not to
Sure.
make a stupid rhyme, but I mean,
Yeah.
he's wise, he's smart, like he's intelligent, he's
Yep.
well rounded. I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, I mean, the fact that he
Absolutely.
put up with my annoying self when I was like 16, going through who knows, nothing was of any real importance, but I'm sure it was all, the world's crumbling around me kind of situation from my perspective, at least. And
Yeah.
he handled it with intelligence and grace and patience. So
Yeah. That's big. It's big. It's cool. I mean, it shows he loves that he seems like a guy who appreciates his fans and appreciates people that like Starkweather. So I think that he's and I think we picked a good album to to discuss because this is the album that got both of us, got you into the band, got us into the band, and that was really the album that put him on the map in a lot of, I'd say. So I think we covered a very important album for him with Into the Wire.
And with that, let's jump into our conversation with Rennie of Starkweather and hear what he has to say about the band. Alrighty. We are here with Rennie from Starkweather, and it's going to be a very very exciting conversation. I'm actually going to start this one off by saying this one's unique and interesting because I technically, I guess, on paper anyway, I've known you, Rennie, longer than I've known Dan, which is weird for me to think about. Um, and thinking about like doing this podcast and listening to music and me as an adult, like I don't want to put too much pressure on you at all because I mean
Right.
it's 30 years has been passed, so we're cool by then. But I don't think that I would be anywhere near like where I am or what I'm doing. I think entirely because of you. So like when I was getting into music and my friend Joel first introduced me to Starkweather, and I forget what band it was, but he was telling me like he was pen pals with some other band. It's like, dude, that sounds amazing. I'm gonna do that with Starkweather. It's like I wrote you letters, and I'm sure I was like the super annoying, obnoxious 14-year-old, but like you kept writing back, and like it happened for like many years. Like you got me like through high school, and I remember thinking like, if people in bands like these punk bands, these metal bands, these hardcore bands, like if they're approachable, they could take time out of their life to like talk to fans and just do whatever. Like just we talked about some of the most random stuff. Like this is the music for me, this is the scene for me. And I think had my experience gone the other way and had it been somebody like whatever, I would have sent a letter and maybe not gotten a reply back, or I would have talked to somebody after a show and they would have been busy. Like, I think it would have just turned me off and I would have gone in a different direction. So, thanks.
Absolutely, no problem. Yeah, that's the half the thing. Like when I was getting into it too, it was same thing. Like you would have, I started like a cut and paste fanzine after one of my neighbors actually had one first, Scott Hellig. He did like this fanzine Total Thrash. I mean, he was a little younger than me. And I'm like, man, this kid's younger than me. And he's like doing this. I can do this. So that was the thing. You would just contact, different bands and you wind up, like tape trading and just like there's people like that you've known forever in the same way, just through tape trading and correspondence the old way when you were writing letters and stuff like that. It's always been a cool scene, the underground music scene that in that sense. And it's, turned over with podcasts such as you're doing and like Mike Hill does with his stuff. And even like remember all the blog sites and stuff that were going on like that, so there's always that undercurrent there or back and forth discourse and stuff like that. So that's fun.
The Mike Hill podcast is great. I heard your interview with him, and I'm a huge fan of him, of Anodyne and Tombs, and that was a
Yes.
cool interview. So I didn't realize he had a podcast until I looked up your interview with him, and yeah, now
Okay.
I'll be checking out his stuff because I really he's great. So
Yeah. I'm looking forward to catching up with him probably next week when they're in town on that Profanatica tour. So that's going to be cool. Good for them. And like that's awesome. He's a lifer. You can tell everything he does. He's like, I don't know how he does it. He's a lot of moving parts, a lot of plates in the air. That's for sure.
Okay, so Rennie, let's I guess start with the basics. You as a youth, kind of what attracted you to music, what kind of music you were attracted to, when you discovered your voice, getting your early bands together, formation of Starkweather, whatever you think the secret sauce was that has kept you guys more or less together for 30 years. It's astounding.
It's with me. The band is actually like was me and Todd originally. We met in college, and like I said, like he was kind of doing the same thing I was. He was like helping like with a record label that did that band Dead Silence from Colorado when he was living out there. But he originally was a New York person, and then he moved out there with his family and went for college, and then he moved to Philadelphia because he started going to school at Temple. And that's how I met Todd. Like we were at entrance exams. Like we were both the early birds, and like I'm, both wearing hardcore shirts. And I was like, yeah, were you at Uniform Choice last night? He's like, yeah, I fell asleep there terrible. I'm like, yeah, pretty much, like we just like hit it off from that. So, and both of us were like all like the outsider metal and hardcore bands, So that was, we had common ground there. And he was, he's a self-taught musician. So that's why like when your influences are like Voivod and Void and Celtic Frost, that's what you get. You know what I mean? Like just some weird, your own kind of sense of timing. And with he and Michelle were, a couple back then. So he taught her how to play. So she naturally was able to get it, like all these weird timings and like that he has. And she brought more of a melodic sense to the noise that he had. As far as myself, that was like, this has been the only band I've ever done. So that's that. Like as far as influences, like music, I've always been like heavier music. As a kid, when I was living with my grandparents, my parents were both working, so I would stay with my grandparents during the week. My uncles listened to like Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, Velvet Underground. My dad was a DJ at the time too, so he saw I liked that stuff and Kiss and Alice Cooper. So the punk rock scene was starting, it's only, 77, 78 and around there. So he would just give me like singles for like just punk stuff. Oh, it all sounds the same. That's how his joke was. It just sounds the same. What do you listen to? Whatever. So that's how I started getting into that stuff through my dad. Uh, his thing, he was into R&B, soul, and of all things like krautrock. So he is a weird, like he is a weird background with music too. But yeah, that's basically that. Uh, so far as voice, I don't know. It's just like because it was like a mix of metal and hardcore. Like the metal stuff I like was the weirder stuff, and the hardcore vocalists I like the most were like Blaine from The Accused, John Brannon, really, Sakevi, who else? United Mutation, even though that's a lot of effects. I don't really use effects. Stuff like that.
Cool. I speaking of effects, that's one of the things again, back in the day that you wrote to me that is kind of stuck with me for forever. I remember we were talking, I don't remember what it was. I think you were talking about like recording process or something. And you're talking about like one of your biggest pet peeves is when like either the vocalist or the guitarist, like they do like the one chord or the one bar and then they just loop it instead of playing it more than once. Like, especially when you're talking like choruses, like they'll just record, once and then they'll just keep
Yeah,
repeating the vocals. Like, yeah.
Yeah, like it's almost like a cut and paste process. Uh, that was the thing with us that we kind of like were, since we didn't write verse chorus, we could, that was pretty much out the window. It wasn't, we didn't have to worry about any of that. It was like rare that we repeat parts.
Sure.
A couple songs do, but it wasn't like that pattern that stuck, intro verse chorus pattern. Yeah, that was the thing with us. It was always like a narrative flow to things. That came on from listening again, Celtic Frost, Merciful Fate, um, the earlier Metallica stuff, even, just stuff that was like almost like orchestral. Like we were thinking about it, like it's just arrangements. It's not like simple, like pop music. You can almost say, when it's verse chorus, like
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously everything. It's one of the things I love about Starkweather is you guys are so unique and you don't have that pattern. Like even within the realm of hardcore and punk, like there's a lot of those bands that, it's like even though they're not necessarily cutting and pasting like parts of the song, like they have that pattern, right? So
Yeah.
they plug it in. Yeah, it's like you said, everything's in arrangement, which is super cool. One of the other things that I think is also interesting, because Starkweather is definitely the exception of, like, whenever anybody will send me a song, like I listen to a song and it's some band and like the song is like 7 minutes long, like my blanket statement I always tell everybody is, unless you're Starkweather or Cult of Luna, like I don't listen to songs over 6 minutes long. Like I don't have the attention span. I'm sorry. Like I can't do it. But how does that come about when you guys are writing? Like, is it like a conscious decision, or it just, like you
Nah,
said, just the arrangement style? Like,
it's just the arrangement style, because like there's no set pattern. Like you can have like a riff with us, like it might go like 4 times, but it's a longer riff, or it's, it's just weird, like the way stuff flows. Jim's writing is a little different than Todd too. Like Jim's background, he was more like like Todd's more like a concrete kind of like writer, like kind of like a Tom Warrior. Like it's just a riff, you know what I mean? Whereas Jim's background, Jim Winters, he's like kind of, because he was in Believer, as well as Conviction and Turmoil. He's into Yngwie Malmsteen and Eddie Van Halen, like rock god kind of guys. But like if you listen to a Van Halen song, it's not like normal riffing. Like Eddie would do this thing like twice, and then it would mutate each time, like through like. So that's like Jim's kind of like style. He's more like fluid than Todd's like the concrete guy. And Jim's the more fluid guy. And then we have Bill, who does the solos on all the stuff from I guess you'd say from that one compilation, that Definitely Not the Majors on. We had Bill doing like that textural leads stuff. Bill was tied with Vince and Harry, or the bass and drummer. He's been in bands with those guys since they were kids. So that's how that connection with Bill came about, was through Harry and Vince.
very cool. Yeah, I mean, definitely, from a listener standpoint, like you said, they're definitely not the majors, which is definitely one of the most underrated, I think, comps of all time.
Best comps. Yep.
But
yeah, that was a
like
cool
Ascension
comp.
and all that. Yeah, that's such a great. I miss the days of those great comps where you actually had exclusive tracks on there, and I don't know. That was such a cool era, basically, having those where you got all like, oh, this song we had, I know, yeah, Eric and I love that comp.
That's a good one, man. Yeah, that was really well arranged. Like some of the stuff he got on there is really good. And meant that Matt was like tied in, because he also was working at Earache, I believe, at the time. He was Matt Young, and he was WSOU DJ, and he moved on to like the record business, and then he wound up actually being like the head of merch at Blue Grape, and then he moved from there to Lincoln Park, of all things. They made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
That's always one of those interesting things for me. Like you find out like dudes who were in punk bands or hardcore bands or whatever, like, and they become like the touring guitarist for whatever, some random like pop artist or country artist. You're like, how did that happen? Like,
Yeah,
how did that call come across their phone? Like,
yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Cool. With the statement that obviously you guys write fairly long, fairly complex songs, and with the vinyl revival being all crazy right now, do you feel like that hinders Starkweather's options for getting represses and stuff? Because I mean, like, I'm thinking like your 30-minute split, like you can't fit that on an A side, like. And
yeah,
like,
that's
most
the
of your
funny
songs
thing.
you can't even fit on half of a 7-inch. Like, what do you do?
That was the thing with that. We were trying to figure out how to edit that for, like, do we cut the intro? Like, we were seriously thinking like cutting the intro down, start it with the solo, with Bill's solo, start with Bill's solo, and then maybe kind of try to edit the end. But that was the thing. Like, man, I can't justify cutting something down to 22 minutes. So, what am I gonna say? This is the edited cut, and the real things the director's cut, like are, you know what I mean? That's how my vision was the long song. I actually was like more Todd than me on that one. Todd, because the joke was while we were writing it, I was like, Jesus Christ, this is already up to Jack Luminous like length. And he's just like, Jack Loomis is 17 minutes. This is going to go longer. It ain't done yet. I'm like, oh my God. You know what I mean? So that it was pretty funny. But yeah, the whole thing with vinyl too. I don't even like it for the larger artwork. I could care less. You know what I mean? I don't have the time or patience to get up and flip the friggin' vinyl over. I don't have the money to expend on, you know what I mean? Like most of these people buying vinyl will probably just listen to their download anyway. You're not getting warmth out of vinyl when the thing was recorded digitally. Like, get the hell out of here. It's like I don't even want to get into that whole fiasco about mastering and different, like now you got the master it for digital, master it for CD, master it for vinyl, master for cassette again. Like, stop. Like, it's whatever. The vinyl is just cool for artists. That's what I look at, because you get to see the presentation bigger, you know. But
Yeah, it's actually
it's weird. It's such a scam. Like how much it costs to make. It's like, oh God. Yeah, like we were joking about when we were looking at, somebody sent me an ad, like an old Crossbear ad where the vinyl was like $10. You know what I mean? Like now you see stuff, it's like $30 for like a slab of vinyl. Get the hell out of here. It's like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's one of the things I always remember, like in the 90s when you get like those, the distro zines, and it was like 350 postage paid for like a 7-inch and like
Yeah.
$8 for like a 12-inch. Yeah,
Yeah.
now you're right. It's like $30. And I'll never forget, like it was my eureka moment when one of my friends was telling me, like, okay, so everybody says the vinyl's better. I'm like, sure, like that's the argument apparently. And he's like, so bands are recording, in a studio, everything's digital, and
Right.
then they're going from digital to analog, and they're like, how does that sound better? I'm like, it doesn't, right? You have signal loss, like
Exactly.
the physics. Yeah.
And then you you're putting a needle to vinyl. It is ruining. It's like, stop. Like it's just a dumb. It's not even worth getting into the argument. It's like a total nerd thing. Like, drives me nuts.
I'm glad you are firmly in the camp of anti vinyl, I guess, because I don't think Dan owns maybe more than like one or two records.
No.
I think you got like that.
It's all about it's for collectability for that. It's like,
Exactly.
listen to your music. I mean, I still got my mountain of CDs I keep for.
Oh, I'm the same way like that, because like, unless it gets laser rot, it sounds better. You know what I mean? Than vinyl.
And the other thing, like, to your point, like most people listen to the music on the go, right? Like, I mean, again, right? I mean, not even worrying about how lazy you are to flip from the A side to B side. Like,
right.
When I'm driving to the airport, I'm not going to bring my vinyl collection with me. And it's funny because, like, again, right, the vinyl resurgence, not only is it crazy expensive, but because it's so expensive and because that's what people apparently want, because that's what they forced on us to want, I guess, like a lot of releases now are vinyl only. So like I've kind of taken it upon myself, like, to contact either artists or labels or whatever. I'm like, hey, like I bought this, like it didn't come with a download code, can I get it? And a lot of people tell me that like the download redemption rate is less than like 5%. Like, again, why are people buying this if they're not even going to redeem it and get the digital down? Like, what are you doing?
I don't know. That's weird.
Just so they can flip it on Discogs for like down the
true.
line. I mean,
yeah, it's crazy. I still have vinyl. I don't even know why I have it. That's sitting in a bin. Like, that was the reason I started like the whole Instagram page like a while ago, was to get rid of my vinyl. There's a few things I'll keep just because I like it. I like it. I don't even listen to it because I don't have a turntable. I haven't had a turntable since the 90s. But there's certain things I'm going to keep. It's few and far between, but the other stuff it can all go. Yeah, I can't play it. What's the sense of me having it? It's not like I'm hanging the stuff on the wall. I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's definitely odd.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very firmly in CD camp, and it's weird because I've got a buddy who has a label in Japan, and they're still pumping out CDs. So I was asking him, like, dude, like, why are you still releasing CDs? And he was telling me that I guess there's no vinyl pressing plants in Japan, and just like the shipping cost to
Yeah,
deliver a pallet of vinyl records is not cost effective. So like
right.
CD is still good and strong. And I'm like you, like I like to see the artwork, like I like to have the packaged product in my hand. I need some kind of physical thing. And so, more often than not it's CDs. And I mean, I understand the financial implications for why people are releasing a cassette because they're priced out of vinyl, and CDs I guess are still kind of viewed as dead. But like I don't own a tape deck. I haven't owned a tape deck in like
Right.
25 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even longer. That was like the thing me and Todd would use that to arrange songs. Like he'd have kind of like just I'd have cassettes just full of just guitar parts of his, and I would go through each one, catalog them, and then I'd splice them together. I don't even have like a dubbing deck anymore to do it. I'd be like, put A to this, like that's how we would arrange some shit. Like back then was like through cassette, like that way. It's crazy. But yeah, I haven't. Nah, you're that's gone. That's like another dinosaur thing. I don't have that either. I don't get that whole revival. Like that's weird.
It's Oh, you go,
Yeah,
Dan.
so cassettes sounded like crap even back in the day. So it's
Yeah.
like, I
That,
mean,
oh my God, that like getting back to the Into the Wire when that came out, we were killing John about putting it out on cassette. We're like, what are you doing, dude? It's like, when did that come out? 94 or 95 on Very, I can't remember. I'd have to look at the actual thing, but yeah, I remember killing him on that. And like he gave us boxes of them. Like, what is this? So we would literally like record rehearsals over them. Because I'm not selling this to anybody. Like, no. It's like I refuse. Like this is garbage. Like it's so funny.
you
how
know
was it
it's
being on Edison? I mean, I think Eric and I were huge Very distro. That was like probably our, oh man, I think, yeah, we love Very. But how was it being on Edison Records?
Well, it was just it wasn't really a label. It was like John's side hustle to vary. You know what I mean? So that's it was not like you'll notice like we don't stay on any label long. We record the stuff on our dime and then whoever will pay that cost of the recording and whatnot. And yeah, John, like because like yourself, like you're saying, like you you know you were getting stuff through the very he hustled, man. He did a lot of good for the stuff that he had on his label. He could move that all that stuff because he had so many good connections. Yeah.
I used to love the reviews. Like he wrote little snippets and reviews of, and I thought this was always so helpful. Because it's like, hey, he said this band sounds like. I'm like, well, I like that band. So I half time I bought stuff just because this could based on their little snippet of
Yeah.
how they. I thought they did a great job with. Yeah, they did. That was just a great distro. I mean, he really put out that was them an initial or and those just were really those days were great. And they toss in free stuff most time. You get free demos or whatever. It's always you never knew when you order something, you never knew what you're going to get basically.
Yeah.
So
And even like when stuff was moving away from, mail order that way to like online ordering, like Aquarius and Crucial Blast, they're like the kings of that, like writing up really good reviews at each of the releases. Like Aquarius was great for that. And Adam, he's still doing the stuff with Crucial Blast. So you get a lot of good stuff from him.
so let's talk a little bit about the Philly scene because I think I don't know if I would say per capita, but I think that there are more bands that come out of Philly that I like than any other city, any other place.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
funny.
it's
yeah.
Like I don't even notice it because I don't, especially at my age now, I don't really go to shows too often. You know what I mean? That's like if it's somebody's coming through that doesn't normally come through or Voivod, I'll go to that. But I couldn't tell you who's like many of the local bands and stuff that I'm not familiar with. It's weird. I'm more in tune with stuff that's outside that I heard online than going to see shows here. So it's weird. It's most of the shows too are like Kung Fu Necktie, which I don't feel like taking the subway up to that. Like seriously, like dude, it's like all these drug addicts and like it's just ridiculous. I don't feel like losing parking driving up there. It's like it's just crazy. Like I remember like the last time I saw Tombs by the like it's like if we just 8 subway stops away. And it's just like, man, it's just like I feel like dealing with this crap. It's, like it's a drag. If I can't walk to it, I'm not going.
What about the first Unitarian Church? That's like a mecca of venues, isn't it?
Yeah, our buddy Joe, Joe McKay, Joe Hardcore, he books a lot of the stuff there. He and Chris, that's actually walking distance for me. But I haven't been in there in years. Last time I was there was for like a metal show. That was like, who was that? Voivod and Psychroptic? Like,
Nice.
like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. I see most of the Philly shows like from Sonny's videos from a hate 5 6
Oh yeah.
YouTube channel. Yeah, from his stuff. Like I'll check out stuff because I was laughing. I saw something from this place Bonk's Bar, and we used to practice up around there. I was like, wait a minute, Bonk's Bar up in Port Richmond. I'm like, they have shows there now. It's crazy. Like where some of the stuff's turned up. My kid went to the show. It was like another thing like up around where we used to rehearse. I was like laughing. I was like, who are you going to see? He just shows me the flyer. I'm like, oh, they'll sound like the Amoebics. They'll sound like Bolt Thrower. They're going to sound. He's like, how the hell do you know this? I'm like, just look at the logo, man. This is like, you can tell right away, like, what these bands are going to sound like.
Yeah, you're right. It's one of those things. Like I joke around, and my daughter, she's 6, but even now, like I can show her like the metal fonts, and I'm like, what kind of music this is, and she's like, oh, it's gonna be screaming, Daddy. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Just you can tell
It's
just by the
awesome.
font, like, yeah, you don't even need to listen to music anymore.
Yeah, it's so funny.
So speaking of metal and shows, um, what is it like, being in a band for 30 years and walking that line somewhere between hardcore and metal, and I guess defying categorization, but also I think like embracing both sides, I guess.
Yeah, that's like the thing. When we first came out, we were joking. We would always call this shit like tribal metal. You know what I mean? Like when we started, that's what we called it. Like in 90. That's like we were like we were joke. We're like a metal band. We're just like we just don't have solos. Like back then, we didn't have solos. You know what I mean? But we didn't look like a metal band, so we always played with like hardcore bands. We got along with them because, like I said, Todd and I were from that scene. Harry, he wasn't from it. Michelle, she listened to everything. She was a little more rounded than us when it came to stuff. But yeah, it's whatever. It was cool. Like we got to play with some cool bands. There was some good bands back then when we were coming out, like locals. We'd even play with stuff like Bouncing Souls, like when they started. Like, that's why I always liked we could play like with anybody. We'd play with Morbid Angel one week, we'd play with Laughing Hyenas the next. It was cool. I mean, like
I have to ask about Morbid Angel. You played during the Covenant, like there was what Covenant,
yes,
right?
yes,
which is like, I mean, that album, their top selling album. I mean, I'm a huge Morbid Angel fan and
so
David Vincent fan, but he's one of those like unique vocalists like yourself. I always like people with unique screaming vocals. But what was it like touring with Morbid Angel? I mean, that
Well,
during
we
their
didn't
peak.
tour with them. We just played with them.
Okay, yeah.
We didn't tour with them. We played with them here in Philly. It was funny because like Eric Rutan was like at the time he was like their guitar tech, so we were like watching, because we'd seen Eric with Ripping Corpse and stuff like that. Because we'd go see them with Deceased and stuff like that, like locally, because Deceased King was like I knew King forever, from pen pal stuff, and so yeah. Anyway, back to Morbid Angel. Yeah, during their sound check, he's actually playing. And it's like,
Hmm.
what the fuck, man? Like he's gotten so much better. This is ridiculous. And it sounded freaking perfect, you know, like, and then we play, whatever. I go out and I'm watching Morbid Angel and it sounds totally different. And it just did not sound good at all. And I'm like, oh my God. I was just like, did we sound like this? And people are coming up to me like, no, dude, you guys sounded perfect. This sounds like mud all of a sudden. I was like, no, my guys, like I felt good for one thing. Oh, good, we didn't sound like total trash. But I was bummed because I'm like, fuck, I wanted to see this, you know, like sound good as it did in the as their sound check was fucking phenomenal. Then the funny thing with that is we load up our shit at rehearsal and then come home. I come home and open the door and my dad's awake and he's like, that was fucking awesome. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I was at that show. That was incredible. I'm like, me and Tyler, like, what? Like, you didn't even tell us, like, you know what I mean, until we get there. I'm like, did you stay for the whole thing? Yeah. He's just like, we were laughing. We're like, so it wasn't just me having, like, you know, my head was screwed up. They sounded, he was like, no, they definitely sounded bad because something sounded different. It was like almost like somebody, like, turned it all the bass up like during her set. I was like, oh, it's like, so it wasn't me going crazy. But yeah, they play flawlessly. Like every time I've seen them, I saw them before that with Entombed and Unleashed. I saw that tour. And yeah, that was great. The Altars of Madness and Left Hand Path thing was fucking awesome. But like, yeah, and Entombed was weird on that tour because LG couldn't get in the country, so it was like they had this weird setup, but they tore it up. They were awesome.
Those are the pioneers of death metal there, man. Those are
Yeah,
those two albums are just like the staples for that. So
yeah, that shit was yeah. Those two bands were freaking phenomenal back then, especially.
I remember one of my first shows that I went to, at least in Chicago, during my formative years. It was actually Entombed, but like Hatebreed was opening for him, which is
Crazy.
weird to think about. And then like
Yeah.
Bloodlet was like the middle band in there, so
That's awesome.
it was you know, again, right back in the day when you could have really really cool like bills and bands that were different. And I think in some ways the hipsters have kind of ruined that mixed bill mentality where a lot of the bands sound similar, like they all, you know, went to the same music school or something.
Yeah, there's a thing here this weekend, that Subterranean Dissonance Festival, and that it's a little more varied. It's, you know, all like noisier kind of bands, but it's like a 2 day fest, and yeah, it looks like a decent lineup. You have like Carbomb, Thanthathaxaf, uh, there's just tons of friggin' bands on it. Who the hell? I'd have to look at it, but it's Witching is on it. They're also on Translation Loss. God, I'm trying to Null. I love that record, just came out like last month. That thing's phenomenal. Yeah, it's like it's a good set of bands on that, and it's varied. Like last year's was pretty varied too. But
Yeah, I think the fest now at least are doing a better job. I mean, I know like was it the beer and metal fest? I think that's just not like that's those are a little more varied. But I mean, again, right, I live in Indianapolis now, so it's not terribly exciting. But like you look at like the smaller and mid-sized venues, and it's like you can see like four indie rock bands that, you know, you might not notice they were different bands if you didn't see them, you know, unload and different people up on stage. And it's weird because I'm used to like in the 90s when you'd have like whatever, like a death metal band, and you'd have like a really really fast punk rock band, and you'd have like weird like emo stuff, and they would all play a show together. And
that was the cool thing, like I said, with my kid going that one show, because I was like, yeah, these guys don't sound like this. These don't sound like this. You know, you got a D beat with you know, death metal and like something that sounds kind of like Krug SS and Poison Idea. You know, so that's hopefully that continues in some way, shape, or form. It's like I don't know. You might as well just have like the same band playing with a different vocalist. Like with some of these shows, it's terrible.
So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of Starkweather. Is it, is it age? Is it sophistication? Is it, new blood entering the band? Is it, just different things going on in your lives? I mean, even like you specifically, just your screaming voice and your singing voice both have like kind of evolved during the
Yeah.
time. So I mean, again, I don't know if that was,
It's
what.
also the tunings being different, from Croatoan on, everything's in B and lower.
Okay.
So there's stuff that I gotta adjust with that, therefore some stuff, is it's just gonna sound different. Like if I tried to play some of the stuff off of Crossbear and into the wire and the different register, it doesn't sound right. We've tried it before. Some songs do work when you down tune them, some just do not. Some just sound like mud, and they were meant to be C and E, and that's it. They can't, you know. That's why we don't play them live for too, because we'd have to have like six different guitars that, let me do that song. And it's like, you're not going to hear Tumult, you're not going to hear Pictured Obsidian, like old stuff like that. You're not going to hear. And plus with us, it's always about like, just move forward. It's why retard progress, just move forward with it. Don't look back to it.
For sure. Since Dan is the resident research expert, he looped me in that you're really big into horror movies, and I
Yeah.
I don't know why I never even thought of that about that, but thinking about your lyrics, like it makes perfect sense. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
fairly obvious. I don't know how I never really
Yeah, the
thought about that before.
Lovecraftian, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and there's like on like I see you got the split with Overmars behind you.
Correct.
That has like a bunch of Legati references on it.
Ooh.
Like even like Nightmare Factory, that was that's a Legati. That was like an omnibus, like release of his. And there's some lines here and there that were Legati lifts. Uh, yeah, there's some stuff in that. There's also some David Bowie lifts in there.
Yeah, I'm a huge Legati fan. I haven't read that much of his stuff, but everything I've read, it's like it's just so weird, so strange. It's like,
Yeah, he's great.
yeah.
He's great. And that's another thing. Jim, playing in The Promise. Well, the dude from The Promise, the head that he runs Cadabra Records, and they do a lot of it's basically spoken word stuff from books. It's like he's done Legati, he's done like Poe, Egawa Rampo, that Japanese author.
Okay.
It's that stuff. I think there's a Chambers thing coming out soon. And that has like a lot of really cool artwork with it too. Like you got Jeremy Hush on there. Paul Romano actually did one of the Legati uh, releases. So yeah, there's some more goofy stuff there with Lovecraft and Legati and Chambers.
I wish we had talked about literature a long time ago. You could have got me into Lovecraft instead of me waiting until after I got out of college. It was a late addition to my life, bringing Lovecraft in, but that's just expanded all of my literary horizons and yeah, all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's there's also a thing, Dim Shores, that it's like a chapbook label. It has like Matthew Bartlett, Simon Stranzas and stuff. That is a pretty cool source for like newer, like weird fiction.
Hmm.
You know, and that guy, Sam, who runs that label, he's really cool. He's get some good artists, pairs them up with the authors. It's a cool little endeavor he has going on there.
Very cool. So as far as horror movies go, what's like your go-to? What are your films that you watch more often than not.
It's weird. It's weird. I'm more of a film noir and crime thing than horror movies. But horror movies, I really love the obvious ones. You know, Texas Chainsaw, the original.
Yeah.
What the heck? The Thing. I love The Thing.
Oh yeah.
It's
the best.
yeah.
Carpenter was the best.
Yeah, especially that little run. You know, The Thing with Halloween and the heck, Assault and Precinct 13. Love that one. Another, let me try to think, moving away from Carpenter horror movie wise. It's funny, I just got a new edition of Inside, that French horror flick. I love
That's a
that
great one.
movie.
So twisted.
Yeah. It's brutal. We actually went up to New York to see that when it first came out. Like I actually was able to see that in a theater.
The French make some good horror movies. That and
Yeah,
high tension. Boy, they had a nice, yeah. They just make some really twisted stuff that is,
yeah.
definitely different than American cinema. So
Even like the old stuff, like Eyes Without a Face and Diabolique. You know, even back then they were ahead of us. That's also because they didn't have the ratings board to contend with.
that's true.
You know, like the U.S. did.
Yeah, in Europe, I think you get a little more open about it. Like, seems like everything, just
Yeah,
that America is a little less repressed. It seems like
yeah.
so.
And even like old Japanese like horror flicks, Onibaba, uh, Face of Another, stuff like that. That stuff's like really awesome.
I love and Nosferatu. My brother and I still watch that one. It's a great, the
Yeah,
classic.
yeah,
Yeah, there's some I don't know horror's. It's amazing how long horror's been around. I mean, in fiction and movies. So
yeah. It's never
it's one of
gonna.
those things that's been with us a long, long time. So
Yeah, it's like the horror movie revival, especially with all those A24 flicks.
yeah,
Like this fucking elevated horror. It's like it's always been around, man. It's always been around.
yep.
Yeah.
There's always trends too. Now there's
Yeah.
yeah it goes in. They something does well, and they run into the ground basically.
Right.
I'm actually a big fan of the Vinegar Syndrome because they're going back and like restoring all these old
Dude,
70s and 80s movies that
Yeah.
otherwise would have disappeared off the face of the earth.
I owe those guys some vinyl because I ran into them at that Cadaver Records. They had a night. What the hell was it? Can't remember the exact name of the festival over summer. I went with Hill actually from Tombs, and Vinegar Syndrome was set up, and I was getting some stuff off of them. And then somebody mentioned who I was, and then they were, wait a minute, and I'm like, yeah, get me some records. I'm like, I'll try to get you some. I'll send them up. So I owe them some vinyl. I noticed they're doing a reissue of Phase 4. Like I love that movie, so that I pre-ordered that. And, yeah, those guys are great, and all their sub labels are really cool too.
Oh yeah, they have all the different specialty ones for all the different niches. It's yeah. I mean, I'm glad that film preservation is something that these group of guys decided to take seriously and turned it into a fairly successful business endeavor at the same time. So
yeah, those guys in Severin, they're really good. Yeah.
It's weird though. Like sometimes, like they'll find movies or whatever. Like they'll somebody will be selling like the original film negative like on eBay or something. Like it's just
bizarre, man.
It's crazy.
It totally reminds me of that book Flicker. If you've ever read that, the Theodore Rossack book, it's these guys are investigating like old films and finding stuff. I actually sent them something not too long ago. I was like, yo, what do you guys know about this? The hell is it? This is some Russian films that Lev from Sleepwalker told me about, and he like sent me a folder of all these movies, and I was like, sent it to them. I'm like, yo, what do you know about this? And they're like, what the heck? I was like, the necrorealism, Russian necrorealism. That's the whole thing. It was crazy.
So I'm not as well versed in crime and noir, but like what are your go-tos for that? What's some recommendations?
Man, like there's the new neo noir stuff coming out of Australia that's really good. That's the Square. Acolytes was pretty cool. These are going back probably 10 years though. Animal Kingdom, which, there was that US TV series kind of spiraled out of that.
Yeah.
The old school noir stuff, man, Force of Evil, uh, M, that's, one of the Fritz Lang's. Fritz Lang can do no wrong anyway. Like anything he does, anything he touches is great. Everybody loves Out of the Past. I'm not as big on that for some reason. I don't know. Maybe it's like me being reactionary, about that. The heck else? Crisscross. I freaking really love that movie. I'm on the spot now. I can't even think. That's what sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just so much stuff in that field. I'd have to go through. I got like bins of stuff, and there's stuff coming out from like some of the niche vendors, like the what's that? The black. I'd have to look up the title. There's stuff coming out of Argentina, like Bitter Stems. It's on that Flickr Alley's been putting it out. They have some really good titles. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, there's just so much stuff. Like you just get inundated with it, and you just get immersed in it. Like I don't know.
Yeah, I think like one of the drawbacks to kind of lowering the bar and allowing everybody access to like make their own movie is, I mean, there's like the internet is flooded with these terrible, terrible, terrible like horror movies that like three dudes made in like a weekend with whatever.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
it's
their iPhone.
Yeah.
Well, it's same stuff with music though. You could say the same with music. You know what I mean? Like some it's like, oh God. Because everybody can record stuff now, like everybody can make their own music. It's funny.
Yeah.
You don't even have to play an instrument. You can figure it out just, with apps and stuff. And some people are real good with it. Some you're just like, oh man, this is why you need a filter. Some people would say that about us, but whatever. It is what it's each their own.
So I know you dropped when we were talking that you are you're a hockey fan as far as professional sports. Does that mean obviously Flyers or?
I like the NHL in general.
Okay.
But yeah, the Flyers, since they're the home team, that's But once they're out of the playoff picture, I still watch ice hockey. It's funny because the Flyers are playing Winnipeg tonight, and I'd always go to when Winnipeg was in town, I would always go because I fucking Bufflin. I love Bufflin. When he was still playing, I was always like me and the kid would go see them, or if it's another team, I would go see it all the time when they'd come in and was St. Louis because I was a huge Keith Kachuk fan. So wherever he went, when he started with Winnipeg, was there, and then Arizona, and when he was with Arizona, I wanted that team to get, because it's basically Winnipeg moved there. I wanted that team to be so good, you had Roenick, Keith Kachuk, you had the Bowling Wall and that, and then they pick up the most skilled scumbag ever, Claude Lemieux. I love that guy. I would follow any team he was on. I would follow that team too. That's funny. But ice hockey's great.
Yeah, luckily you being from Philly, you've got the whole, the legend of the Broad Street Bullies.
Oh my God, dude, those guys will never have to buy a meal for the rest of their lives. Those guys, I'd be on a construction site and they'd have these big team meeting kind of thing. They'd bring in one of the Flyers, to just be like a key speaker, It was just fun, So yeah, it's great. And my kid, when he played, he was also in this league that was backed by Ed Snyder and the Flyers. It's like an inner city league, the Snyder Youth Hockey League. So you'd always run into those guys there. The Watsons, Jimmy Watson has a rink out here too. He's still is into it. All those guys are so hands on and they're still like real personable, man. You can just go out and talk to them. They're real down to earth dudes still.
Yeah, Rob Zombie he was supposed to do a movie on him, but it never got off the ground. But I thought that would have been interesting. I mean,
Just
that would have been a cool era to cover for a movie, I think. So
yeah, I mean, it's the NHL's version of Slapshot.
yeah, Slapshot, exactly.
Really, instead
Yep.
of being a farm team, you get the real deal.
Yep.
Those guys, like I said, like those guys are so personable, man. You can just walk up to them. They would show up at like the different rinks all the time, just hang out, talk to the kids, and they still skate and shit. They're good dudes.
I think that'd be amazing to have like your claim to fame. Like, what do you do? Like, what's your claim to fame? Like, I beat up some Russians. Like, that's what I
Oh my
did.
god, that is one of the best games ever. Like I love watching. I'm rewatching that. I remember seeing it like live, like on TV. It was great. And that's like when I grew up was like when they were winning, when it was like the Broad Street Bullies were around. I totally remember that as a little kid, like people getting crazy, like when they won the cup. It was wow, it's funny.
Unfortunately, Dan and I grew up with the Blackhawks, and they
Yeah,
were
well, we had '90s Blackhawks, so
Yeah, the
Yeah,
'90s
but
they were good.
Blackhawks were
The
good,
Ronick
man.
and
Yeah,
they,
Belfer, yeah, but I mean, they was
the
overshadowed by the
Hawk.
Bulls in Chicago, but yeah,
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
and
that's
then
a
we had a great run with obviously the Patrick Kane Taves era, which was spoiled every
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
Now everybody in Chicago doesn't talk about hockey anymore. Unfortunately, everybody jumped off the bandwagon. So
It's crazy.
that's how it goes in Chicago. When they're hot, it's one of the hottest tickets in town. And when they're
Yeah,
bad, no one cares. So
that's how the Flyers are sometimes. Like they used to be like, even if they were like terrible, it would sell out. But like the past couple of years, people were just getting tired of it, man, because they had no grit and no heart like that whatsoever. This team this year is actually fun to watch. They actually show up, but they're still streaky. They'll still do like the 5 wins in a row and have 5 losses. It's like, come on, man. Like there's like nothing consistent. That's what they're consistent with, being streaky.
it's the one thing I've never been able to unlock about hockey. Like, occasionally when you have like back to back games, like the two same exact teams, all the players are the same, right? Like you haven't swapped out anybody. Maybe you swap out the goalie or whatever, but like
Yeah,
night one, like one team will win like 7-2, and like night two it'll be like 2-3. And I'm like what happened? Like
yeah.
I
It's
don't
a
know.
weird
It's weird.
sport too. Yeah, it's a weird sport. You know what I mean? Like anything can change. It's so fast, and like sometimes if like you're saying, on a blowout game, they just give up. You could just see that. Like they get deflated fast. It looks like that's what happened with Winnipeg tonight, but they never win when they come to Philly. Like we'd always laugh about it. Like I said, like I don't always those teams I always liked, but it was like they're almost non-competitive when they come here for some reason. It's like it's not the Broad Street Bullies, guys. There's no reason to get.
Yeah, but you guys have that reputation, I'm sure. I'm
Yeah,
sure
but
it
I
still
mean
carries
that's
some weight.
long gone. That's when like I was like 6 years old. You know what I mean? Like
I think though
50.
I'd be more afraid of like the Philadelphia fans though, and that's
That's
walking out of that stadium.
that was more a football thing
yeah,
than
football.
ice hockey and basketball or baseball. It was like, I mean, that's more, especially when the vet was still here, that's calmed down a lot. The whole, oh, fans throwing snowballs at Santa Claus. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, come on, man. That's like so old. Like he was
Uh,
a skinny drunk anyway. Like my uncles like always laugh about that. He didn't even look like Santa Claus. We were throwing stuff at him. Oh God.
uh, so what does the future look like for Starkweather? You guys working on any new material? You
We
guys
got a lot of like new stuff that we're sitting on, but it's just that we had since the pandemic we haven't done anything. And it's like Drew, the current drummer, his child has like a he's like immune compromised, and he also had at birth there's something went wrong with the doctors did something and messed the poor kid up. So he had like some motor skill deficiencies that they actually travel with him, with Ronan, to different specialists. Well, they'll be gone for like weeks at a time working with these specialists. So he's got a lot, on his plate. So it's like just trying to figure out what we can do. Like there's like 6 finished songs, like, from beginning to end, all done. We've been playing them live for years. And that we gotta, and then there's a couple that we're, just working out that one of these years, probably when I'm 80 years old, so it'll get done. I'm in no rush, whatever. It gets done when it gets done. There's no sense, battling it. It is what it is.
I mean, once you get that ninth song, then it's going to be like a double CD release. Then,
Yeah,
right?
really.
So, I mean,
yeah, God knows. Yeah.
You guys have any old songs like in the vaults that you guys have, one day going to release or?
Nah, there was something that we recorded with the half-hour song that I haven't finished my end of recording on the vocals on it. And I don't know. I just never finished it. I don't know what it was. I'll get to it. But now, like, the question is, like me and Vince were talking about like a month ago, like, yo, where's the drive with the songs? I'm like, I don't know where the hard drive is. I think Alop has it, but Alop's moved the studio a couple times since we recorded that. So it could be a lost cause. I don't know. So yeah, so there's that 17-minute monster that I have to finish. Ugh.
That feels daunting to have to throw on some vocals for a 17-minute song.
Nothing compares to that half hour. So it's all cakewalk after that.
Yeah, I was gonna say with your vocals, because you do the screaming and singing thing, which seems like it'd be tough. I've always, just because of the dynamic of that. But
Yeah.
do you have to? I mean, do you have to do like more vocal exercises now, or have you had to change kind of way you?
Well, I still record the stuff the same way. Like I'll do almost all the melodic stuff on their own, and then I'll do the harsh stuff. That's the trick with me. Like, live I can do it, but studio it's just about getting the clarity and clean takes of stuff. So I'll purposely do all the clean stuff, separate, and get that out of the way, and then I'll do the harsh stuff. And plus, sometimes the recording's weird. Like I liked, since you guys wanted to talk about Into the Wire, I like the way I did that because I got to use a handheld microphone and like it was live. So I like that technique, but we had to set up stuff weird for that when we did it. It was like setting up baffles in front of monitors because I couldn't wear the headphones to record like how you normally would. You'd have headphones and scream into a stationary mic. This I could just hold on to the mic like it was live and move around and do stuff. I haven't really done that since. I think I want to try that again, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's the thing with me was get the clean stuff done separately on a day. Do them first before you do the harsh stuff because you can go balls out in the harsh stuff, and you don't have to worry about technique. Live, you have to worry about technique. So you're not, especially if you're on the road, so you don't blow out your throat. Like you're singing you're consciously doing it all from your diaphragm and stomach. If I'm recording in the studio, I don't care. I'll go for broke. I don't. That'll go out the window. I don't have to. I don't have to talk. I'll just go for it sometimes. Just throw caution to the wind. Just go. Live, you gotta be a little more measured. It's like a sport. It's like in that way.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So since you've mentioned that you guys are kind of label agnostic, like what does that normally look like, right? So you guys, like you said, on your dime, you guys will record whatever EP, an album. Do you normally have like people contacting you like, hey man, like
I'll shop it. I'll shop
around. Okay.
Yeah, I'll shop it. Yeah, I don't even. It's It's whoever's going to pay our cost, whatever it cost me to record, whatever we put into it, as long as that gets recouped, I don't care, as long as it's a good label, one that can has good distro.
Is that how that partnership with Translational House came about? Because it seems like they've been your
Yeah, and plus they know our schedule, you know what I mean? Like they know that I'm in no rush. I don't care, you know what I mean? I'm not going out on the road. It's like I'm not into touring, I got a day job, I can't. I don't know how Hill does it, but I think it's because he's been with that same company for so damn long, and he can work remote. I can't. Like I'm a grunt. I'm a construction working grunt. So I have to block out. If I wanted to tour, I'd have to, make sure money's in the bank to pay bills, cover everybody, and then I could go.
Yeah.
But Todd and I, when we started, our joke was always to be Bathory and never play a live show ever. But that got blown out. that didn't last.
Yeah, I work with a guy actually, and that's kind of how it works. Like, because he's in, I don't know, like 7 bands right now or something. But like, whenever he's going to go on tour with one of his bands, like he'll just tell his boss, like, "I'll see you in 2 months." His boss, like,
Wow,
"Okay, cool."
yeah,
Like,
that's crazy.
We'll wait for you to come back. And like, dude, like, how does that work? Because
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
some of these,
wild.
even like now, right? He's 50s, mid 50s, early 50s, whatever he is. But like, I know he's not making money on these bands when he's going on tour. So like, what does that look like when you have no income for 2 months? Like, I don't know. It seems weird. Like,
Wild.
it's different when you're, late teens, early 20s than when you're, in your mid 50s. It
Yeah,
seems weird.
especially if we have family.
Yeah.
How do you do this? Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
The world has changed.
Yeah. And like I said, like I don't know how Hill does it, but I know he can do some of his job remote. He's an engineer, so he can do some of the stuff remote when he's working certain jobs.
I'm waiting to see some like, band where everybody's like in their 50s and like, they're playing and hold on, like I got a call from work. We gotta pause the set list. Like we'll go back in 10 minutes.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
Those guys are like they're on their computers, like while they're in transit from one place to the next, doing work. It's wild.
Yeah.
Crazy world.
Well, I think you guys like playing live, like it's almost when you guys do play live, it's like an event because I know like Eric and I always talked about like, well, we gotta see Starkweather, but it was like we gotta go to Philly basically because it was like
Philly or New York, yeah.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
us, yeah. That was always the thing with us, was New York. What's this dog barking about? Yeah, that was all. That's Northeast Corridor was basically where we haunted. That's our haunt. From Boston down to DC.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that today, like thinking about the interview. I mean, I think of every band I've liked for, let's say, the last 30 years, I think you guys are the only ones I have not seen live, which I feel like it's a black mark on my record right now. But I mean,
Yeah.
If you guys only play the Northeast Corridor, other than visiting New York like twice, like I visited the city twice and I did like work in Syracuse, like that's it for me for the Northeast. Like I've never stepped foot in the state of Pennsylvania. So
yeah. There's no reason to other than go to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Everything else is Pennsylvania, as we joke about. There's nothing good in between these two cities.
Yeah, it's weird because when I was growing up, we had like these neighbors that lived a few houses down, and then my family ended up moving, and then they ended up moving across the street from us, and like my mom and their mom are like still best friends, but they were from Pittsburgh, and they would spend all of their time talking crap about like Philadelphia because there's that weird rivalry and as again once I got older, because I loved so many bands from Philadelphia, I was like, how many great bands from Pittsburgh can you name, right? Like
Creation is Crucifixion. You got those guys.
Okay,
there's some good stuff out of there, like the one Pyreath. was started. They were from there. You know, there's some good stuff. What was it? Some early death metal stuff from out there too. Yeah, there's some good shit from Pittsburgh.
Mm.
I think there was like a 90s hardcore band from Philly called like The Deadly. I don't know if you were
Deadly.
familiar
I
with
don't
them at all,
remember that.
but I they were released on like this little label, Hawthorne Street Records, that
I know that label. They had some
okay.
good stuff.
But I want to say, like in the blurb, they were talking about the way that the band formed because again, I think they were from Philadelphia. There was some kind of like mustache convention. Like I remember reading about
God.
this in the '90s, and it blew my mind. But like these two dudes like ended up talking and like bonding over their love of mustaches or
Oh my God.
whatever it is that people do. And I was like, that's like a really interesting and unique and cool way to start a band.
Only in a city,
But
man.
it feels like a Philadelphia thing to me.
Could be. Yeah, that's a weird one. That's funny. Yeah.
Well, Turmoil is like one of the, oh man, it's like one of my favorite hardcore bands. I mean, Philly, Eric and I are big Ink and Dagger fans, but
Yeah, Ink and Dagger, they were
Kid
good.
Dynamite, yeah. But Philly's
Yep.
produced some great music, so I mean, just
And
some good shit.
I'm probably the minority. I did like Turmoil a lot, but when Turmoil broke up, like Lick Golden Sky, like they were
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yep.
awesome.
Even
Yeah,
though they
they're all
had kind
good.
of a revolving door for vocalists. And I remember it was like, I guess what was their final tour because I remember seeing them in like Chicago, I think it was. And their vocalist, like before the show, was like, yeah, I just want everybody to know, like, we've talked about as a band and this is going to be our last show together. And like the guitarist was like pissed and like throwing instruments afterwards. Like I was talking to him, he's like, yeah, he blindsided us. Like we didn't know about that.
Oh man.
And then like right after that, the drummer moved to Louisville, and then like they started like he was in the band Nixon for a while, and it's again it's just weird like how bands interchange members like that because I think I remember at some point talking about like you guys shared a bassist with like Dillinger or something like that.
Yeah,
Liam,
Liam.
right?
Yep, yeah, Liam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Who's awesome.
I got a funny story with that. When we were no, this is so bizarre. This is like how small, like a small world thing. When we were recording Croatoan, we were doing that up in Canada. My mom lives in Delaware. It's summertime. She's on the beach and she's talking to this lady. And they're just talking about their kids. All right. So my mom's like, yeah, my son, he's in Canada right now. He's recording. And this lady's like, yeah, my son's in Canada too. He's in a band also. And my mom's like, what band? And she's like, I think he's with Starkweather. And my mom's like, that's my son. You know what I mean? So like my mom actually met Liam's son on the beach when we were recording that record. So weird. That's the most random thing ever. Like, how's this happen? Yeah. And when we were recording that's when he also had to do a Miss Machine. So he had a busy summer that year.
I bet.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I remember seeing Dillinger at I don't know whatever crazy fest that was, and Liam was in the band at the time, and he was like throwing himself on the stage and like landing on his back, and
Yeah, he's
that's
awesome.
That's when they still had their fire breather before they retired that position, and I watched their guitarist knock somebody's teeth out in the front of the crowd when he just kind of swung his guitar like an axe into the crowd, and I was like, this is interesting.
Eddie from Cattle Press was always good for that too.
Nice.
Like Eddie, yeah. I've been at some shows where Eddie's like clobber some dudes. I remember like it was like one weekend I just happened to go up to New York and to go see I think it was when we went up to see Diamanda Galas, and like after that we were like, let's go run over to CB's. I think there's a show going on. It happened to be one of Ralphie Boy's loudest fuck fests, and there's friggin' Cattle Press, and like Eddie smashes this kid's head open. I'm like right next to the kid. He's bleeding all over, and I'm like grabbing him. I'm like, you got to get the hell away from us, man. I don't know who you are. You're concussed. You're bleeding like a pig. Get out of here. Yeah, it's some funny stuff. But yeah, Cattle Press. That's like definitely one of my favorite. That's definitely my all-time favorite Hydra Head like album. Is that Cattle Press album?
Wish they had more stuff. They had that album that was so awesome and heavy.
That split.
Yeah, they split exactly. I guess some of them are the best bands that.
And they had this. They also had that split with the Agoraphobic Nosebleed, which I think is only on vinyl. I don't think I've ever listened to it. I had it, but I don't think I've ever listened to it because I'm on alternative.
I think you guys should do a split with agoraphobic nosebleed. So we
They're
have
awesome.
42-second songs and we have
Yeah.
like 20-minute songs.
Well, that was the joke. That was the thing with the split with that we have with Concealment, the fucking 17-minute. That was one of the backbreakers why I never finished it, because the band that we were going to do the 17-minute song was a grindcore band. Thousands Will Die. It was going to be with Thousands Will Die, and they broke up. So I was just like, you know what? I'm not finishing this thing. It'll get finished on its own time. That was, now you mention it, that was the whole thing, was going to be this yin yang, one, because the 17-minute song we have is like just mellow, actually. It's like kind of like Pink Floyd Red Boyne's End. And then, paired up against, 17 songs in, however much time they were going to do it. And whatever, it fell apart, and I never finished it.
That's why music's amazing, man, because you can do things like that. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. And originally the song that's with Concealment was going to be with a different band, and they broke up. So then it was just like, Jesus Christ, who are we going to do this with? And then Felipe from Concealment got a hold of me, like, he's like, yo, I'm working on this song. I'm like, you're doing this as this split with us. So I was just like, I don't know if fans or butts. This is how it's going down, So it was funny. So that's how basically that split came about, like, from that. And I think the guys at Translation Lost were kind of like, oh, you guys should have finished that other song. It would just, I could have put out a Concealment record and a Starkweather record. I'm like, whatever, man. It just didn't happen that way. I didn't feel like finishing that other song at the time.
So it seems. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Eric. Yeah. Let's say, speaking of split, so we interviewed Steve from Season Risk, who's such an awesome band. Eric and I,
dude, I love that band.
But how'd that split come about? I mean, it's such this just out of curiosity. I mean, they're another band that kind of toured with everybody because they could fit in with metal, whatever.
And they did those splits on them on their own too. The one with like Paul and Glazed Baby. Ours came about because the guy that put it out, Mike Supermodel, his label, he had the song from Season of Risk, and he brought it up to us. He was like, yo, would you guys be interested in doing it? I'm like, hell yeah, because we'd seen Season of Risk every time they came through town, you know what I mean? Whether it was by themselves on, like, numerous tours, or when they came through with Neurosis, or Steve was calling him neurotic. Like, when he was on the road with them, he's like, oh, neurotic. But yeah, so that's how that came about. And cool. Yeah, that was like, that's basically how that came about. We knew them, they knew us. We never got to play together though. It was always like, we go see them. Or, we never were able to hook up a show together.
It's not too late. You guys are both still semi-active,
and they're doing something with Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum. I noticed. I was like.
Yeah, in almost a month. I'll actually be there. So
that's probably the best show of the tour, is those two. Because like here it's with Stick and Elizaveta. I'd rather see what you're gonna see, that's for sure.
Yeah, actually I kind of petitioned my boss. I was like, hey man, like if they need any more help in Kansas City, like I would love to be there. But he's like, yeah, go ahead and book it. I was like, cool, man. Like I need to fly in early Monday, so I'll be ready to go to that show. He's like, yeah, don't worry about it. So
that's gonna be a great show, man. But then when I saw that, I was like, oh man, well, I can't Season Risk do the whole tour with them. It's like, it would be awesome.
Was it tough then to kind of what we were talking about before? Because I mean it's only a 7-inch, so what do you get, like 4 minutes, 4.5, whatever?
You can get 7 minutes.
Really, 7 minutes on
you can get 7. Yeah, wow. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I mean that song was already, we knew what song we could do with them. When Mike brought that up, he's like, yeah, when he's like, I got this song. I was like, okay, yeah, no problem.
What about like your other splits? Like, how do you, obviously we heard the Concealment one, like the Overmars one. Like, how does that come about? How do you,
Overmars came about? Overmars came about just because like we knew those guys, you know what I mean? Like there was somebody I would write to, like Xavier, and it just came up. Like he was like, yeah, well, I got these songs. And they did a split also with Kill the Thrill around the same time. And he's like, hey, I have these songs. I was like, yeah, we're going into the studio soon. And we like brought it up to Jake from, you know, Deathwish. I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And he was like, let's do it, you know. And then Xavier got a hold of people at Alert to Antifascista, and they did the European press of it, and Deathwish did, you know, the U.S. and I guess Japan. With they took care of.
Oh yeah, because I think they have that whatever that Japanese imprint is, it Throat Ruiner or
Yes.
whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's how that went down. I can't remember, but I think that's how it went down.
I remember being stoked, like, dude, Starkweather's on Deathwish. Like it was a weird pairing, but it was cool.
Yeah, but we always, you know, when we were both coming up, Converge and us, we played the shows together and stuff. We, you know, I mean, we knew each other. They're friends, you know. So, you know, they just hustled. Like they're like a band that hustled. They get all the respect in the world. You know what I mean? They fucking put in the work, man. They're like Dillinger. They, you know, put in a whole lot of fucking work to get to where they are. You know, even if you don't like their music, you gotta appreciate that they, you know, they do what they do. It's like there's plenty of bands that I don't like that, you know, I can appreciate them because you know, they put in a lot of work, man. So again, it's like you can just put it in like a sports analogy. They put in the work, they hustled, you know, they do what they do.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, sounds like hopefully, if the stars align, we will maybe see a new Starkweather release by we'll say 2025.
Who knows, man? I can't, I can't I can't even think about it sometimes. Like sometimes I'm thinking like, yo, should we just grab a different drummer and fucking just record it and then Drew can learn it later if he wants to play shows. You know, it's like that might be the route we go, you know. I don't know.
I feel like sitting in as a session drummer for Starkweather would be overwhelming. Like
Well, that's the
that
thing. Like
your,
everybody
your
thinks
songs
like
are tough.
Yeah.
exactly, and people don't
Interesting.
realize I'm like exactly. It's like, and it's not like sure, it's not like technical like parts, but the way parts are put together is the thing that's the stumbling block for a lot of people. Like they don't get it. Like it's because it's not like we don't always end stuff on the even like stuff's it's almost like collaged. You know what I mean? Like it's a weird that's just for that Todd timing stuff. Like everything's on a weird time signatures. It's I don't know. But yeah, we've had people before Drew after Harry, and they just don't. I don't know what he's barking about. He's all right.
Cool.
So I have to ask my brother lives in Phoenixville, went to
Okay.
so he's in the suburbs and
Yeah,
went to
I know.
school in the city, University of Sciences. So I used to go to Phil. One of those things you know go to I've been to Philly 5 times to see him and everything, but I really enjoy Philly. Like it's one of those, I think that you know everybody kind of has a perception about it, kind of like Chicago in a way, but Philly's
Right.
a great city, I think. But what are for someone, I guess, being a lifelong Philly resident, what are some spots what are your favorite spots in the city and I guess yeah, kind of places someone going to visit Philly, what would you recommend? Just something.
The Mutter Museum. Well, it's still
It's an
here
awesome place.
before it
Yeah.
friggin' goes under because the person that's running it now doesn't is embarrassed by it, even though it's like the best thing going. Yeah, definitely that place. Graffiti Pier. There's a lot of like low key stuff here. You know, if you want to see a show, I guess you have a Kung Fu Necktie. If you want to go see a metal show, right? That's where a lot of the stuff goes on there. Uh, you know, there's different oddball stuff like I said, from all the rink stuff that I go on with my kid, there's like weird spots where you can go ice skating in town.
cool.
It's funny, like you wouldn't expect it. Like total in the hood like spots. It's cool, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, this is here, you know what I mean? It's pretty wild. You know?
I know it's a bigger
There's a
venue,
lot.
but sorry, the Electric Factory is a pretty cool venue.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw
Yes.
Mastodon and Opeth there. It was a pretty badass show. So
Yeah,
but,
that's a cool place. They've been actually doing This Is Hardcore there.
oh, cool. Yeah.
Like that festival, that's where they've been doing it. Yeah, like because it's gotten that big. Like Joe's gotten that big with that fest. That's the place where he used that. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's a cool.
You got the Colonial Theater right there for the Blob Fest. Like when they do that in the
Blobfest,
summer,
yep.
you know. And even Colonial has some cool stuff going on. They actually did like the Film Noir Festival there. They didn't do it in Philly. They did it at the Colonial.
That's
It's pretty
cool.
wild. Yeah.
And my little brother loves the Blobfest. He goes almost every year, so it's like a staple for him.
Oh yeah, that's the thing, man. That's a cool little thing that they have going on. That's like I said, that's a cool little town.
Yeah.
They've been doing shows like at VFWs there and stuff and too. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, Phoenixville seems like it's kind of it's a happening spot there. It's cool, cool
Yeah.
suburb. So
Yeah, it's a cool little place.
Cool. Well, definitely thank you for your time talking to us tonight. It was amazing.
Oh,
Like I said,
absolutely, no problem.
it was definitely been on my bucket list for 30 years or so. When I was 14, I knew I wanted to start a podcast one day as an adult.
Yeah, one day I see the future. I see the future. It is podcasting. It's fucking funny.
visionary Eric there, yeah.
Yeah, right. It's like Hill. How the hell did he do this?
Yeah. It's whatever well, I guess nowadays, so that's what children aspire to, right? To be influencers or whatever.
Yeah.
God, it's so weird. What a
Social media.
world.
YouTubers.
What a world.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
But
Bizarre.
all I wanted to do was start a band, but since I couldn't start one of my own, I was talking to other people who were already in successful bands. So
And we're the least successful there.
that's like a crime, I think. That
Hey,
I mean,
don't
even
care.
even talking about
Absolutely.
like Season to Risk, like I think
Yeah.
of all the bands that I listen to, like you and them specifically are like two of the most underrated bands of all time. And it's funny because whenever you see like a Starkweather like album review, like they'll always start off with being like, let's get out of the way the fact that they're the most underrated band on the entire planet. And then
Yeah.
they'll launch into the review and talk about what an amazing release it is. And they're like, why the hell don't more people know about this release?
Because
It's
we
like,
don't tour. We don't, you know what I mean? That's always been the knock for us. It's like people don't see it. They don't see it. You don't exist. That's what it is. I don't care. I make music for myself. I don't give a shit.
I think you guys were like a victim of your time though, because I feel like nowadays, you could get by with being a band and not really touring because of the internet and everything else. Like
Yeah.
you guys were too early, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably. You're probably right.
Yep.
It's the way the die got cast.
Yeah.
Hey, it's what it is.
I mean, I have to imagine bands like No Effects or the Bouncing Souls never would have made it big if they didn't, tour their butts off for
Oh,
the
dude.
first 10 years of being a band or however long it
Yeah.
took for them. I mean, like
Yeah, it's crazy.
like you said, they put in the work, right? So
Yeah, it's crazy. They were determined. They weren't going to, they
Yeah.
weren't going to be denied.
but I get it, right? Like the touring life. I mean,
I couldn't do that.
no.
I hate it doing travel hockey with my kid, wrecking my back. Seriously, man. Like all that driving. It's not for me, man.
No.
Not for me at all.
Like I travel a lot for work, and it's not really fun. So
Ugh. I've been fortunate. Like the past few jobs I've been on, have been only been like 10-mile drives. I mean, it might be hellish because I'm driving through the city, but it's close to home. Better than driving all the way to Boston for the ice hockey game that I can't go in and watch.
for sure.
Yeah, that's wild.
But yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, we
looking forward
appreciate it.
to
Absolutely, guys.
you guys. I guess one other final question. I know, talking about music, or whatever. You guys have any upcoming shows? Anything?
Nah, nothing, right? And like I said, nothing. The only thing I got planned is like I said, the only thing on the agenda is trying to get these fucking songs recorded. That's, me and Vince were like laughing about that. I was like, God, when are we gonna get in the room and just get this stuff nailed down?
Have you guys experimented around with, instead of going into a studio, like, recording stuff at home? I mean, at least for you vocally, it's relatively easy to, get the equipment, and it's not too.
Yeah. It's just getting the drums, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. That's the backbone. And
For sure.
I don't know enough about programming them to do it. And you know what I mean? Like you need somebody like Meshuggah drummer to program your stuff, because he's like the genius of figuring that stuff out. Yes, it's just easier if we're like old school. You got to sit in a room together and play.
Get it?
Yeah.
That's usually how the magic happens.
Yeah, exactly. That's how, like, whenever we record, we just record it, sit in a room and just play it, beginning to end. Get the song beginning to end.
Cool. Well, I definitely look forward to hearing whatever else you're going to do.
Yeah,
I know Dan and I have talked, especially since his brother lives there. I've got like a friend who's kind of like my kid sister that lives in Philly too. So,
Right.
if and when you guys have any shows coming up, I think we're gonna finally make that pilgrimage and make it happen, because I need to scratch it off my bucket list. Who knows? Who knows when the next pandemic or World War III or whatever is going to happen in this world.
And that's like the reason I go see Voivod every time. Like after Piggy died and they got Dan now, it's like I'm not going to miss any show they play. They're within 2 hours. I'll go see it.
For sure.
Yep.
But yeah, thanks again for everything. We
yeah.
we appreciate it. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, guys.
welcome back. Dan is not with us here for the outro. He's actually spending time in the happiest place on earth with his family. So hopefully he's out there having fun and enjoying himself. This is normally the part where we would go through and tell you everything that Rennie and Starkweather have coming up, but unfortunately, there's nothing on the horizon going on. Starkweather doesn't have any shows coming up, no planned new releases, no planned reissues, anything at all like that. And since Rennie pointed out that he is a one-man band kind of guy, nothing else going on with him musically. So with that, I really hope that you enjoyed the episode. Hope you learned a lot about Rennie and Starkweather and everything else that we talked about. I know the conversation kind of ran the gamut about lots of different topics. So I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next week for the second part of the episode when we do the deep dive into The Wire. Dan will be back for that outro, so it'll be a little more complete. And unfortunately, like I said, Rennie does not have anything at all coming up. But please, you'll see the links down below in the description for Starkweather's Bandcamp. Go there, check it out, buy some music, buy some merch, whatever else you can do to kind of support the band. I look forward to the opportunity to one day get to see them live. It was an amazing episode. I actually had a lot of fun going through, listening to it when I went through and did the editing. I forgot how much of a blast that conversation was with them. So please enjoy and see you again next week.
You'd better make room for me. I'm coming through with my ego. And your band is really rad. Yeah, I know. My ego lets you down. My ego props me up.